Fantasy Football Matt Camp at the Matt Camp Fantasy Football lead writer December 20, 2017 Bleacher Report/Getty Images. Making it to the Fantasy Championship is an impressive feat that takes luck and skill, so congratulations if you're still alive heading into Week 16. Luck can be all about the right, or wrong, matchups. If you played against AJ Green in Week 15, you loved his disappearing act against the Minnesota Vikings. If you streamed Blake Bortles or Jimmy Garoppolo, you had better fantasy production than someone who used Tom Brady. Luck can also be about avoiding injuries. Unfortunately, those who made it to the fantasy playoffs thanks to another amazing season from Antonio Brown will have him for Week 16, if they even survived Brown's minor contributions in Week 15 before he left with a torn calf muscle. Rex Burkhead's knee injury will keep him out for Week 16, which eliminates another prime fantasy producer. The skill of putting together the best roster and making the best lineup decisions is what got you this far, but it will also be what allows you to survive some of those major injuries. A deep roster could provide some relief to those who have to soldier on without Brown or Burkhead. If you made it this far, you might have Kareem Hunt or Adam Thielen to thank. Those are the studs, but the saviors could wind up being waiver wire superstars like Kenyon Drake or Keelan Cole. Here's the first look at points per reception, PPR. Rankings for Week 16. These will change throughout the week and up to Sunday's action as we get more information about injuries and limitations, so make sure to bookmark this page for my full rankings in both PPR and non-PPR formats. Yes, you can ride Blake Bortles in the championship. John Raul/Associated Press. Better than usual Blake Bortles, Jack at SF Bortles has graduated from sleeper/streamer thanks to 3 strong weeks in a row. After completing 21 of 29 attempts for 326 yards and 3 TDs in last week's win over the Houston Texans, he has 903 yards, 7 TDs and no INTs in his last 3 games against the Texans, Seattle Seahawks, and Indianapolis Colts. The Jacksonville Jaguars might be known for their defense, but they aren't hiding Bortles as a game manager, and he's performing well. He has a great chance to keep up a strong fantasy production when he and the Jaguars hit the road to face the San Francisco 49ers. In the last 4 weeks, the 49ers allowed the 9th most fantasy points to QBs. Bortles will help win fantasy championships. Concern Kirk Cousins was versus DN as the Washington Redskins tumble toward the finish line, so do the passing numbers for Cousins. In each of the last 2 weeks, he failed to throw for 200 yards and he hasn't thrown for more than 251 yards in the last 4 weeks. During that span he has 7 TDs to 4 INTs, which is fine, but far from dominating. Life won't get any easier for Cousins with the Denver Broncos visiting this weekend. They've been the 4th best defense against fantasy QBs in the last month, holding them to less than 11 points per game. Cousins is more of a desperation play than someone you should be using with confidence. Avoid Jimmy Garoppolo, SF, versus Jack. Don't get greedy when it comes to streamers. The entire idea of streaming QBs is to take advantage of favorable matchups. Garoppolo has done that for the most part in his 3 starts for the San Francisco 49ers against the Chicago Bears, Houston Texans, and Tennessee Titans. However, the competition level rises when the Jacksonville Jaguars come to Santa Clara on Sunday afternoon. They've allowed about 14.2 fantasy points and around 204 passing yards per game to QBs in the last month. Garoppolo has played well, but this isn't the time to squeeze more out of him when he'll more than likely struggle. Sleeper Nick Foles, PHI, versus the Philadelphia Eagles didn't get much out of their defense in a comeback win over the New York Giants in Week 15, so Foles was asked to do way more than expected and responded well. For only the 6th time this season, the Eagles attempted at least 35 passes, with Foles completing 24 of 38 attempts for 237 yards and 4 TDs. Foles isn't polished and doesn't have the same athleticism as injured starter Carson Wentz to extend plays, but he clearly has a good grasp of the offense and a strong supporting cast around him. If you streamed him last week, you might try him again on Monday night when the Oakland Raiders arrive in Philadelphia. Even if Foles doesn't get the same volume he had in Week 15, the Raiders' vulnerable secondary gives Foles another chance at reliable fantasy production. Expect the Patriots to lean on Dion Lewis. Keith Zragasic/Associated Press. Better than usual Dion Lewis, Nebraska, versus Buff in Week 13. Lewis had one of his best efforts of the season with 92 yards on 15 carries against the Buffalo Bills. 3 weeks later, he faces the Bills again. but this time in New England. Unlike their first meeting, this game won't feature Rex Burkhead thanks to a knee injury suffered in Week 15. Much like Lewis, Burkhead also had strong performance when the Patriots last met the Bills. In that game, he carried 12 times for 78 yards and a pair of TDs in addition to 3 receptions for 25 yards on 4 targets. While James White's targets might increase, Lewis could see an uptick in carries with Burkhead unavailable for Week 16. Over the last month, the Bills have been an average matchup for Fantasy Airbase, but they've been the easiest matchup for Airbase on the season. Even if Mike Gillislee is active for the first time in 7 games, Lewis has a great chance to play a huge role in a prime matchup. He's coming off 13 carries, 67 yards and a TD in the win over the Pittsburgh Steelers just a week ago. Concerns